Good day, everybody. This is Mark Arnstein at Remax Hallmark and livingnorthtoronto.com. And this is the Mark Arnstein Show, and it's episode number 3. And I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, the guru of real estate in all of Ontario, Mr. Steve Tabrizi. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you so much for being here today.
Mark, I don't know what to say about that introduction, my friend. I'm honored to be here at your show and look forward to many of your future episodes. Hopefully, I will be again the guest, and I always listen to your episode, and they're fascinating.
Thank you
for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So give a bit of background about Steve. He is our Chief Operating Officer at Remax Hallmark. He oversees 25 offices in the Ontario area with over 1,700 agents plus 200 staff members. He's got over 20 years of experience. He also not only does he run Remax Hallmark Real Estate, but he also does property management, real estate development, capital home lending, and he's just absolutely a wealth. And I mean a wealth of knowledge. Ironically, Steve's got an engineering background, which got him started into real estate. And for those who probably would not know this, I'm going to bring this up real quick. When I moved here 17 years ago, my very first ever real estate transaction when Steve was at Royal LePage and I was at Royal LePage as well, was with Steve himself on a condo downtown on Lakeshore Boulevard. So
time flies, my friend. Time flies.
It's crazy. And look where we are now. It's unbelievable. What I want to get going with Steve today, I thought this would be a great, because Steve's got so much unbelievable insight into the market. And Steve is a massive studier of all things numbers related and trends and seeing things that are going on. And Steve does an unbelievable job reporting back to our brokerage with all kinds of phenomenal information. So I thought, why not take his info and give it to all of our viewers and all of our listeners? So let's talk off first. What were your thoughts about the election from last night?
Well, I predicted it's going to be a minority government. I think the Liberal Party thought that they can have a majority. It made sense for them to call the election, although a lot of people really were upset and disappointed during the pandemic. Why would we spend the $600 million to call the election? I think the agenda was very clear. The ruling party or the governing body really needs a majority. It's time for us to really cut back on the stimulus packages so we can really get ourselves on the back track of the going back to the normal life and fiscal responsibilities. Unfortunately, in a minority government, all the opposition will hold the current party as a hostage, and the party cannot make the decision that the way they want to do it. So the outcome during this election, the last 36 days, all the three parties, particularly with the real estate industry, they came with many promises, many policies that they're going to implement. I don't think so. None of them will ever get implemented the way they described it.
Right.
And probably in order to show a good face and basically demonstrate that they kept their promises, they will come with some sort of announcement, but not as drastic that it was. Time will tell. Mr. Trudeau definitely has a tough time ahead of himself because the inflation rate is out of control, and he needs to really start bringing the economy back to a normal course that it has. And we shall see. And
right.
he's now safe and secure. That is one of the 8 prime minister in Canada that has managed to win 3 elections in a row. How many years it lasts, time will tell. 2 years, 4 years, or 6 years, we don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting you brought up the housing policies because we did a bunch of vlogs on the different platforms from 3 different major parties. And out of the Liberal Party, the only one that seemed to have any meat on the bones of any of the stuff they were talking about was the one that they were going to create a TFSA you can have for investment purposes that are tax-free savings account. You could do one for real estate for first-time buyers, which I thought was actually good. But that was about it. The rest of it was all like whatever. And I've said this many times before, and I really do strongly believe this. And we talked about this on our very first episode when I had Jazz on Takar about real estate investing and growing your net wealth and your generational wealth and using real estate as a means to do that. And it's a provincial thing, but they talk about all this housing that they want to create for everybody. And I'm like, number one, if you're just taking that $600 million on a stupid election and put that towards your housing platform, that would have made a massive difference, number one. But number two is something has to be done with the Residential Tenancy Act, because at the end of the day, it's restricting developers from wanting to build multi-use buildings that can be used as rental units for lower income housing, because unfortunately it's so hard if you get a problematic tenant to get them out of the property and to put someone in. And in turn, what it's doing is it's making it very hard for renters and I've said this in the past, that guys that have that average credit score, and ratings and incomes, landlords just don't want to rent them because they don't want to take on the risk of having them become an issue. And because if the tenant does fall behind in their rent, they can get only caught up by a little bit, and then the landlord has to start the whole process all over again, which is really unfortunate, because it's not like the landlord doesn't have the property cleared and free of title. Most likely they have a mortgage on the property. So someone's, the whole idea was an investment to have someone else paying the mortgage for you. But now you get caught with this crazy tenant who doesn't want to pay the rent. And what are you supposed to do? And it's unfortunate because it's such a great way to grow your generational wealth. And they've made it so difficult now. And they're talking kind of out of both sides because they want more housing opportunities for more people. But if you don't make it easier for to get rid of, unfortunately, bad tenants, because look, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly of everything we do in life. It just is what it is. But how do we get around that?
Well, you brought a good point about that's one of the issue of the multi-tier governing system. One of the biggest problem that we have in this beautiful country called Canada, we have cities, we have province, we have region, we have federal. So the mandates of the housing is usually within the city's jurisdiction for permit and a development, and with the provincial support for that. So now you got 4 levels of the government that each of them, they have a different opinion and views, because typically there are different parties in those levels. Now you got a federal government comes with gun and blazes and just said, I'm going to build the 1.2 million houses within the course of the next 10 years. People forget that if they go back to the first election that Trudeau was elected, he promised about 800,000 homes over the course of the next 10 years. So what he just added, he just increased the same quota that he hasn't even established. So, but then the federal government policy, particularly liberal, is been diversity and immigration. So how could you increase the demand by bringing immigrants, and then you haven't caught up with the current status of the supply? So his father in 1976 to 78, he actually suspended the immigration policies. He basically said, let's put a pause so we can caught up with what we have. Trudeau doesn't have that liberty because his caucus is full of the MPs that they are with the different diversities and different backgrounds. So he needs to please everybody. So the solution to our supply and demand, I do believe that it should be the rules and regulation in terms of the landlords and tenant, but it has to be a fair solution. But the delay that the system does exist right now in the landlord and tenant tribunal is really discouraging many investors to go towards buying and holding these properties. So the solution right now, there is no immediate solution. That's a problem. We lost the momentum of the keeping with the supply and the demand probably 10 years ago when the market started really going crazy and upwards. So we now notice during the last 17 months of the COVID that the suburb is flourishing. So what we need the transit connectivity from the suburb to the hub of the employment, which is typically are in downtown Toronto, Mississauga, Brampton, within sort of, call it the GTA. So if somebody really bought a property in Barrie or Hamilton or Clarington on the East End, now they are asking themselves this question: did I make a right move? How can I commute 2 hours each way every day, come to work? So 2 things going to happen in the future. Either the governments, all levels, they're going to help on the transit connectivity. That's number one. Number 2, how can we reduce the cost of the land so the developers, they can pass the same offset to the consumers? City will not remove its levies, its park dedication, its fees for development because the cities are in the bad financial situation. So what we need the conformity of the official planning, meaning if there is a parcel of land, let's say Yonge and Lawrence, where your market area is, Mark. So everybody should understand this certain size of the land can build only, let's say, call it a 10-story building. Not somebody built a 10-story, somebody built a 30-story, somebody built a 40-story. This is a European actually style, which they have a conformity. By keeping the conformity also, we help the traffic congestion, the services that we provide, and we won't have this madness that we have right now in our city, 80-story, 40-story, 20-story, 10-story. Plus also the conformity cause the faster approval process. The faster approval process lower the cost of the development and lower the cost of the land. Right now, the cost of the land is gone completely out of control because the old boys and old investors, and they bought these lands, they are now really laughing. They bought a land for $1 million. Now they're selling it for $10 million or $20 million. So development process got to be controlled. Transit is the key. And then how can we support the investors that give them enough financial needs to build affordable housing? The only way that can be possible, the federal government is the biggest land owner in Canada. So they got to release some of those land, probably on the lease to own basis. That's the best formula. Not selling it to them. You get a contract of the 99 years to lease this parcel of the land, but the condition, Mr. Developer or Mrs. Developer, is this. You go build this housing for us and you own it for 99 years. And this way, so they will create a financial return for investor. Otherwise, it won't work. And we will see perhaps in the future right now, because certain generation, millennial, they cannot afford to buy in a core, in GTA core. So they're going to go to the suburb. You will see there will be future employment hubs in the suburb. Why? Because the smaller cities, or regions such as Durham, such as Hamilton, such as Simcoe County, they're going to come with a special offering and incentive for employers to set up their shops there. Why? Because they want to attract employment. And the downtown Toronto will become perhaps the hub for executive or headquarter of the companies.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to have an office downtown Toronto, pay crazy rent, and now you are suffering also the situation of I don't have enough employee or enough talents to recruit and hire.
Right. Okay, that was very much a wealth of information, and that was very impressive how you just did all that. I don't know if you were looking at notes or not, but that was unbelievable. Okay, so you brought up one point I want to get in there too. Actually, two things. One is back to the whole with the Residential Tenancy Act, and you mentioned that how it is completely one-sided, which I agree. And I'm not saying it has to go back to the full side of the landlord, but there's got to be somewhere in there where there's a happy medium for both parties, because otherwise you're just discouraging people from buying more and more housing opportunities, create more housing for other people who have to rent because they can't have any other choice, which is number one. The other two thing you brought up about immigration. So that was one of my things I want to talk about today is obviously with COVID, immigration has been majorly restricted for over the last almost 2 years. But obviously going forward, once that does open up, I strongly believe that's going to put more pressure on the condominium market, especially in the downtown core or in general in the GTA, which is then in turn going to put more pressure onto townhomes, then the semis, and then to detached and working its way up the ladder. So where do you see immigration going over the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
Well, immigration is the backbone of this country. It was built an amazing system of the bringing talents, entrepreneur, investors, skilled worker to Canada for the last 30, 40 years. But what has happened, the policies, they have not changed, blending to the current market condition and current needs in Canada. Historically, immigrants, they arrive in GTA, Vancouver, some in Montreal if they were speaking French. What we need really in Canada, to my humble opinion, is basically a spread of the knowledge, skilled worker, and to all the provinces. Canada has suffered majorly compared to the US for the interprovincial migration. When somebody moves to Toronto, good luck convincing them, okay, move to London, Ontario, move to Ottawa, because they see the hub of the employment is here. Right. But we noticed in the last 3 years, even before the COVID, Toronto is getting really expensive. Millennial particularly are saying, look, maybe I should go to Ottawa. Maybe I should go to London because they got a good employment sector. They got a good school. They got a good health system. So what I would really like the immigration policy is really become more encouragement, perhaps more towards other provinces with a limitation of the minimum number of the years that you have to be in those provinces. Or even if they want to come to Ontario, we really need to push them to settle in the areas rather than the GTA. Otherwise, the issue of the rising in the prices, you talk about the condominium, it will continue and become out of the control. People are talking about it, oh, the market is at a point it's going to crash. It's not going to crash because the crash will happen when you have a high unemployment rate, when you have a high interest rate, which we don't. It's very interestingly that basically 17 months ago, we suddenly peaked to 14% unemployment. And now after 17 months, because of the stimulus packages, which federal government has done a great job providing that, CERB, commercial loans, wages subsidy, you name them. And we are now sitting at a 7.25%, which is about a 1.75 higher than before the COVID. As soon as we entered to the COVID, unemployment was 5.5. Now let's say we are at 7.5. We're only by 2 points higher. So now they opened the immigration, which they have to. Why the immigration policy does exist in Canada? Canada suffered from the aging population. Canada needs the sales force. Canada needs the workforce. And this is only sustainable by bringing immigrant. Canadian, they don't like to have more children anymore. Cost of living, expensive. Yes, the birth rate is dropping. So all those factors are really convincing all the parties that we need immigration. Immigrants, they come here, they bring wealth, they bring investment. People don't realize, realtor, including myself, or real estate industry constantly get labeled that, they're making too much money. This real estate industry really need to put the stop to it and halt it. People don't realize the real estate is the mother of the economy in Canada right now.
Thank you.
Many investment. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm in this business. Just think about it.
I sorry to interrupt. I've been saying this all along on much of my blog. Same thing. I think without the real estate market, it's the whole trickle down effect that it happens, right? It runs everything.
Exactly. So somebody buys a home, somebody rent a home. They're going to buy furniture. They're going to buy a car. They're going to lease a car. They're going to pay for utilities. They're going to pay for services within surrounding their rental property or owning the property. So there is an expression. They said the real estate feeds 72 other chain of the economy within the country. And real estate during the COVID has saved Canadian GDP and economic factor. If real estate would have stopped and halted in the last 17 months, I can assure you that basically the economy of Canada would have had darker days for years to come. We need right now the new elected party, which is still the Liberal. They really need to stop the stimulus packages.
Yeah, I agree.
The economy is good. The economy is healthy. Canada did really good in terms of the vaccination rate. We are among the top G20 countries. We have almost, as of last night, at 81% double vaccinated, single vaccinated. Probably within 45 days will be 85%. And you know what? I just talked about it this morning at one of the office meetings. We got to go back to the normal life. COVID is not going to be over. COVID is a part of our life probably for the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's like the flu. It is what it is.
Yeah, till the global vaccination rate get to the 75%. Once the global vaccination rate get to the 75%, then we are safe.
Right. No, you brought up some amazing points again. There are two, and I say this all the time. It's like people just don't understand. It's like they want to crush the real estate market. It's like, why? If this is all going so strong, then it has, like you said, like from the home inspector to the mortgage broker who's getting money from the banks are making money to the grocery stores, because now there's more infrastructure around, more people coming into the neighborhoods to buy more groceries from. So it's why mess with a good thing? Like it just like if it's driving the overall economy, don't mess. But back to the CERB, which is really got to come down and get taken off the plate, because you got too many guys sitting around at home that should be working. And now in turn also it's driving up the prices, like for construction, for instance, the price to build a home or do a renovation, which is also what a lot of people have been doing lately because of want to stay where they live is gotten so expensive now. I mean, I had clients who had a quote originally from a builder at one number, and then before, like just as COVID started, and then only recently, a month ago, the price went up once they had their permits in play and ready to go, went up by another $400,000 just because of the fact that there's just no labor. There's such a shortage of labor out there because these guys are going, if I'm going to get my CERB and I don't have to do anything, I can sit on the couch all day long and play video games and just kind of hang out and pretty much get close to what I was making from before and don't have all the physical labor part of it. Why go back to work?
Well, I totally understand. You got to not underestimate the issue that many families, they really suffered during the COVID when the school was closed and homeschooling. It's really tough. You have younger children.
Yep.
You realize how it is. But now with the reopening of the school, that so far, let's cross our finger, the last 2 weeks, sounds like we manage it pretty good. We don't have a major outbreak at the school. And soon, I'm sure they will come with the announcement that the younger, even under 12 people will get some sort of the vaccine. So I think it's time we go back to a normal life. And yes, some people really got this impression and the notion, oh, I love working from home. I like to work 3 days from home, 2 days from the office. But I think that they need to realize we run a big company. They need to realize, yes, it's a great idea if we can create system, tools, and mechanism to keep the productivity at working from home the same that it used to be from the office. Unfortunately, beside maybe a handful of large corporations such as banks, such as insurance companies, such as IT company, that they have this infrastructure, Canadian economy is built on the small businesses and a medium size. Canadian economy from a energy sector, which was 20 years ago, that was the bread and butter of Canadian economy, has come to small businesses, innovation, research, that sector, service sector, which is the bank, insurance, and everything. These companies, they need their staff back.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, there was a report by RBC announced recently. The vacancy rate is gone up to 22% in Canada, 5% more than ever the historical in Canadian employment, meaning at least every company has one job posting out there.
Right.
And everybody's service level is dropping. Everybody's service. I was at the airport at the Pearson 2 weeks ago. It's a complete chaos.
Yeah.
Because they can't service. They can't service. You see all the flight delays. You see the shipment. You talk about it, the construction, the cost of the goods. Why do we have a 4.1% inflation rate? The cost of the good has gone up. Why? Because the cost of the gas is up. The chain of the supply is completely out of whack. And who pays for it? The consumers. The interest rate, they kept it very low. It's time to bring it up, to bring it to the normal pattern, which is basically sustainable. When you bring the interest rate up, you push the supplier to reduce their offering prices to the consumers, and we will be back to a normal standard market. Consumers, they think realtor, they love to have a crazy market. No,
right.
We love to have a balanced, healthy market. We would love to make sure that everybody hopefully become a homeowner. And there's nothing wrong about the renting, frankly. We need a segment in our business to be rental, to save money, to become a homeowner. Not everybody can be a homeowner, not because they don't deserve it. It's just a cycle of our business and society, the way it is.
Yeah. Well, I just had this conversation yesterday with my videographer, photographer. We were talking about just, the difference between buying, you mentioned earlier about out in the suburbs or buying in the city. And, like there's that old rule of real estate, right? It's the 3 L's: location, 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 right? And if you want to be in a prime location, you got to pay for it. And it just a factor of what it is. It's life. And, and doesn't mean it's wrong or right. It is what it is. Like for me personally, I would rather be in the A1 location and have a smaller property because I have all the convenience factors at my fingertips than being on a big parcel of land and living up in North. And it's nothing wrong with it. That's just my personal desire, right? Which is great because that's why there's chocolate and vanilla and apples and oranges, and it's whatever works best for you.
Exactly.
So a couple of things I want to tap on real quick is, sorry, I just knocked the light off my computer. is, okay, we mentioned earlier about the condo market. Where do you see the condo market going forward? Because there's a lot of talk that it's over and saturated, and there's just too much supply, not enough demand. I personally don't see it. I think the condo market is going to keep going strong because, again, as immigration does open up, which is going to come sooner rather than later, it's going to put more pressure and more demand on that condominium market because it's the entry level for them to get into housing for being in Toronto.
Yeah. So Canada, in terms of the home ownership ratio, is sitting at the number one in the G20 countries. 70% homeowner, 30% rental. Unfortunately, we're going to see for the next 5 years a tip on that. The tip would be more rental, particularly the people who wants to have a high-paid job. They got to be close to the downtown Toronto or to be downtown Ottawa or Vancouver, whatever part of the country it is that the hub of the employment it is. So therefore, the only choice for them would be either rent a condo or buy a condo. The condo market cannot even keep up with the demand, and that doesn't have enough the work labor to complete these projects as fast as possible. So the condo market, I will see it quite be healthy. All these politicians also, you talk about the house saving TFSA account, but all three of them also, they talk about something. They said, oh, we're going to put a freeze on a foreign home ownership for 2 years. Or also they said, if you flip your property within the 12 months, you will be subject to the higher tax rate. One of the biggest problems that these politicians, they don't understand, the differentiation between foreign buyers and a Canadian expat. I am in the favor of having a different privileges for Canadian who lives in Canada, pay taxes in Canada, versus a Canadian expat that they are living overseas and they have a higher income, but they have the same privileges that you and me, we have, Mark, but they come and heavily invest in Canada. What they don't realize is not the foreign investor that tipping the condo market. It's actually Canadian expat. We have 320,000 Canadian passport holder in Hong Kong. We have 100,000 Canadian passport holder in Middle East. So we got 500,000 people that their families are here, their children are here, but their incomes from the overseas. Those people are heavily involved in investing in Canada. We need some policies towards them to make sure that the condominium investment is being controlled moderately. What's happening to this group? They don't want a property management. They don't want to have a headache with the tenant, furnace, this and that. They're buying the properties, and before the sort of the completion, it's called assignment. Either they are flipping them or even they're just listing them and selling them. So we need control that segment. It could be a small percentage of that segment that they are investing in terms of the number of the people, but the volume dollar that they are investing is huge. So back to your question, is the condo market going to cool off? Eventually, yes. If you pay attention to the cycle of our business, our cycle of the business is very interesting. For a year or 6 months to a year, the condo market goes up, and then the condo market goes flat. The freehold, the semis, the townhouses goes up, and then this cycle continues evolving. You will see more condominium development in the suburb, because the developer are also looking at selling these units as fast as possible.
Right.
Toronto of $1,400 to $2,000 per square foot is not a bite for everyone. But guess what? If a townhouse in Durham, in Pickering and Ajax now is $1 million, why not a condo for $600,000?
Yeah.
So condo market will be an entry level for first-time buyers, and for move-up buyers, probably the most attractive choice would be semis and townhouses. Detached homes are going to be for really the third or a fourth move in a cycle of home ownership.
Right. Okay, so that's an interesting point, because I want to hit on this a bit, because you talk about the cities are lacking so much funding and they don't have the money to afford all the infrastructure. So let's circle back for a second. Then City of Toronto has land transfer tax. So basically, if you buy a property in Toronto and you're south of Steeles and east of the 427 and west of what's the cutoff there?
427.
Yeah. No, if you're coming in from the east, is
would be Port Union.
Port Union, yeah.
Port Union, yeah.
So you have a City of Toronto land transfer tax. So, which is not steep. I mean, sorry, which is steep. Sorry. And you think about where the housing market has gone since they implemented this tax, like what, 10, 12 years ago?
Yeah.
What have they done with all that money? Because again, just before you answer it, because you think about what you just said, is like if people are making those 3 to 4 or 5 moves to get up and working their way up the ladder, like unfortunately the cost to do it in Toronto is getting more and more expensive to do it because of like, not to knock what I do for a living, but it's like you got people, I think, sometimes bypassing 1 or 2 steps because money right now is so cheap to get and stretching themselves to get a little bit more to that bigger next house, so they don't have to do the in-between step because the costs are too high to do so.
So what are the costs of the running a city? Services that provide to the residents, transit, road infrastructure, sanitation. Those are the 3 items that really cost the city of Toronto, and of course park and growth and sort of creating a green space. So the city has failed by issuing so many permits, so many allowances to the developer. They caught to this idea late in the game, not at the beginning, because there was no solid plan in place. Why would you allow a condominium goes downtown for an 80 story, but then the park levies is very minimal? Why we don't force the developers to actually build a park, to do a development there? That's one. Secondly, look at the sanitation system, the garbage, everything. Look at every cosmopolitan city in Europe, in developed countries. Privatization is the future, unfortunately, because it competes on the prices. We are not privatization. I'm not an anti-union, anti-right of the workers, but it's costing us heavily. Subway system. Japan has the best subway infrastructure in the world. I would encourage everybody to research it. They have probably about, last time I checked, about 8 or 11 lines over almost 400 kilometers of the infrastructure. For years, the Japanese train system tried to manage this on a sort of a state's policies. About 20, and they become bankrupt. In 1985, they become bankrupt. So they went tender each line to a separate company, but under a strict guideline of the Japanese system. We want this service, we want the fare to be identical, we want the train infrastructure. Right now, it has the best train system in the world. And guess what? Because you got 6, 7 companies are competing with each other for these rail. And the city is just basically collecting the share of their profit. Look at our highway system. Look at the 407. Yes, it could be $100 a month. Look at the 401. So look at the 407, how it's well managed, hardly any congestion or traffic. Look at the 401. So the city collect almost on that double taxation $400 million a year. But the problem is the debt is so high and mismanagement is so high, unfortunately. Look at the contract. Look at the how many companies you see out there, without naming any companies. Do you see any new sign of a company that become a player in infrastructure in Toronto? No, it doesn't. No. And the city has another cost, infrastructure for the safety. So the budget is really a massive, and they really is mismanaged. And the problem again goes back to that red tape of the multi-tiers. Right. We don't have one boss in the room. That's a big problem. People laugh. They said, don't get me wrong, democracy is great. People, they say, look at the China is a totalitarian system. One dictator say this and that. But look at how the infrastructure get done properly. If you recall the last election, the last debate between the John Tory and Mr. Ford, John Tory literally asked the question from the province, give me the authority to go ahead what I want to do with this city. Now, you got John Tory, you got the Rob Ford, you got the region, you got councillor from a different background.
Yeah.
And the councillor, it drives me crazy. They have no urban planning experience. They are councillor from just the people they've been elected, and they really don't understand the infrastructure of this city, what's going on, what should be done. We complain constantly. Why the real estate going expensive? Well, let's ask our own parents. Let's say a parent has a 50-foot lot in a certain good neighborhood in Toronto. The next door goes for a severance to get the 50 to 25 footer. Suddenly the homeowner association, the ratepayer, they all go against the developer, just say, no, you can't do it. One of the easiest tasks that has been done in Europe, old houses, they are on the large lot. What's the easiest to grow a city is within the city.
Yeah, just something
So
make more housing.
We need a 50-foot lot. Just make it 25-foot lot. Why we need a 100-foot lot? Make it 250-foot lot. No, we are against all those growth policies, and now we are also complaining, oh, my children rights is being taken away. They can't be a homeowner. Because we as a parents are also the old folks that are holding the old grounds and all the equity, all the property, are not proactive and visionary. And the city's hands are tied. So do you think the problem of the debt, of the issue with the city of Toronto is going to go away? Absolutely not. Unless one guy come up and just say, here the way it is, I got all the power, let me fix everything. And I don't think so in your lifetime and my lifetime, Mark. Maybe in your lifetime, not my lifetime.
Well, even in Vancouver, they do property tax is that just raise the property tax, but then give a break to whether you're a pensioner or a widower, so that you're not hit hard and you can stay where you are. But for everyone else who's working and contributing to society, like you can pay more. Like Toronto has the lowest mill rate for property taxes in the entire province, but yet we have the most infrastructure in the entire province, which doesn't kind of really make any sense. Because you think about it, if you go to a home, let's say in Toronto for, it sells for $1.5 million, the taxes are say $7,000 or $8,000 on an annual basis. Where if you go to Richmond Hill, that house that sells for $800,000, the taxes are $10,000, $11,000 a year, because they're still building and working and growing the infrastructure in those areas. But just increase the mill rate. But then, and then on the form, if you're a widower, check here, your rate is this. If you're a pensioner, check here, your rate is this. I mean, again, it's just another way to make easy income for which you have constant revenue coming through to help support the city. One of the
idea that was suggested when Tory was elected, I really think John Tory has done a great job, frankly. I'm a big fan of John Tory. Overall, he has done a great job. There was an idea was floating about 401 to be a token, a quarter toll highway. If you recall, many years ago in New York, as soon as you're driving from Buffalo towards New York, multiple highway, you just throw a coin into the cone, and it was a quarter. So just think about the concept of that, how much income will create with the city, but subject that the city has the power to basically invest that money properly.
Right.
Look at I'm east of Yonge. I think you are west of Yonge, your residence.
Yeah.
So east of Yonge is privatized garbage collection. West of Yonge is the city. Day and night, my services are, I have a property west of Yonge too. My services are 3 times better than the west of Yonge.
Yeah.
Because it's a private company. The future, unfortunately, look at our subway infrastructure. I mean, in the last 3 years, we got it going to some degree, but that's just like a 20%. We need at least another 80% growth in that subway system.
Oh, yeah. Well, but back to what you said earlier, just about the fact that it takes so long to get things done because it's all unionized, unfortunately. And, if that was, say China or Japan, like that the crosstown line would be done, finished already and fully operational like 2 years ago.
I think we shouldn't just, it's not about the union, frankly. The issue is about that red tape of the approval process.
Right.
Who makes the decision? The province made a decision that the city says we need the subway. The province now goes on begging for the money from the federal, from this and that. And then the city says, okay, the Yonge Street, Yonge got to go all the way to Highway 7. Why would we have the local housing community meeting that we are asking the home ownership in that corridor, oh, do you like this line or not? Give me a break. Hey, sorry,
Yeah.
the subway line gotta go.
Yeah.
I can't hold the subway because I have a community meeting and somebody will come with a really unrealistic expectation. I don't like the subway line because it passed by my house and it will vibrate my house. What are we going to do? We're going to stop the future?
Well, and it's so stupid because think about it. If you live, one of the biggest driving forces for the values at Yonge and Lawrence is the fact that you're in two of the most highly sought after school districts for elementary school. And the big one is that you have easy access to get to the subway.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why people love living in this neighborhood. Then you look at, like, say, the Allenby area of Toronto, so Avenue Road and Eglinton and all that going across, that values were always a little bit lower than, say, Yonge and Lawrence because you didn't have the subway access. Well, guess what? In another 2 years, that's going to have the subway access. Those values are going to skyrocket down there. So, like, people make a big complaint, but then they think about the now, not necessarily the future, which is really unfortunate. So, which takes me to my next question. So where do you see right now the housing market going over the next, say, 6 months to a year to 2 years? We compare 2020 to 2021. We're already up over 17% in values from last year to this year. Everyone was freaking out because August was like the slowest. Was a very slow month for sales. But inventory also was extremely low as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand with each other. So where do you see the housing market going over the next little while?
So, of course, the election caused confusion.
Yeah.
So you got two types of clients in this sort of industry, buyers and sellers. Seller now are putting a pause because they are saying, where is my next move if I sell? Buyers are hoping, which is a false hope, that the new policies will be implemented and then suddenly the market goes down by 20, 30%. So, and that's why you look at the numbers. We had another factor too. For 15 months, they locked down the entire population inside their home. They said, you're the prisoner of your home. And then suddenly around June, we ease up the reopening. So people really were frustrated. People just say, you know what? I got to go out. I got to really enjoy my life. I couldn't enjoy my life for 15 months. So for the last 2 months, you see the ease in July and August is a multiple factors. We track the numbers. Don't compare the numbers to 2020 at all because that was a phenomenal year. It's once every maybe decade going to happen. But if you track the number to 2019, which was a very good and healthy market, we are now at par, maybe even 5% less than the transaction number compared to 19. But interestingly, as you said, the prices are going up because the inventory keep dropping. Right. Inventories in some part of the Ontario are 15 days. The highest are about 45 days, a month and a half of inventory if we sell everything. So I suspect the fall market will be a nice, healthy, steady, flat market. Why? Because during the next 3 months, they realize, the market didn't crash. The sellers are saying, look, I don't need to really be in this expensive home. I better diversify. COVID taught a lot of people that, why am I holding on this expensive property? Maybe I should go to the smaller city, or maybe go to the cottage country, or maybe I should basically support my children that they become a homeowner. And you will see a nice rebound again in spring of next year because the news of the increase of the interest rate again will encourage people jumping into the market, locking their mortgage for 5 years. Are we going to be crazy out of the norm, similar to the early stage of the 2021, that the market in March and April was really on fire? I don't think so. And frankly, I don't think so. We should be there because those are the dangerous indication that then the government will come with some crazy policies and halt the trade. No, we want a steady growth, steady move. And I always tell people this. I say, look, you're praying that the government do something that the market drop by 10%. But let's take a look at this. We had a year over year, almost 20% increase. So that means no matter what, even if the government does anything, we are still at plus 10%, even if we take the 10%.
Right.
This false notion of that the market is going to drop by 40% and we go back to the prices of the 2010 or 2012, it's absolutely incorrect. Never going to happen unless there will be a major economical disaster, which is two elements attached to it. Number one, high unemployment in Canada and massive high interest rate in Canada, which never going to happen. Canadian interest rate will sit, my prediction is next year, around 2.5 to about 3.25, which is a beautiful interest rate.
Yeah.
My first home, I paid 16% interest rate.
Okay, so I wasn't as bad. I was 6.25 on my first place when I bought. What is that? 23 years ago or something like that. And that at the time was crazy. Like when I started in the business in 1995, we were just coming out of double-digit interest rates. We were just starting to get into the single digits. And so I remember 2 years later when I bought my first condo and I got 6.25, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. And you think about now, on a 5-year fixed rate variable, you're hovering in that 1.35, 1.45, depending on the mortgage amount, which is like basically the bank's almost like paying you to take the mortgage, which is what's driving so much about what's going on. And like, what you're saying earlier with the people are either they're not moving because they're going to stay in their homes because they love where they live, and they're going to just do upgrades and they're going to renovate or do an addition if they have room to do the addition and whatnot. And then for the people who do want to upgrade, who get out of the town and get into the suburbs, they're still looking for the opportunity because they're going to want to buy before they sell, which tends to be the trend, which is what's causing inventory levels still to be so low. Because I look around the neighborhood right now and, I know what I have in my pipeline and what's coming on in the market, but at the same token, there's literally nothing for sale right now. And I think there's like one house for sale under $2.5 million, and that's a detached. Like it's crazy.
That's what I call this era for the next, basically the past 30 days, maybe next also month of October. I call it the era of the confusion. And every market, when there is a confusion in the market, it doesn't last long.
Right.
And they will watch. Consumers are now sitting and watching the activity. The minute they get comfortable that nothing major going to happen, guess what? They will jump into the market.
Yeah.
Which is, if you recall, in March of the 2020, when the COVID happened to June, the smart people bought and jumped in because for the 90 days, the market dipped in activities, not in prices.
No.
But you took advantage of the people who were, I shouldn't use the word advantage. You basically take advantage of opportunities that somebody were panicking, they were selling. People who are smart, they will make their decision in this month and the next month, because there are people on the other side of the equation. They have this notion also. They think, the market is going to change its course, so maybe I should sell right now. No, jump into the market, to my humble opinion, as early as you can, because it's not going to change its course.
No. So, and I've had this come up a couple of times in conversations. I'll end with this last question because I know you got to go. Would you sell and then go into a rental, or would you just stay where you are?
No, I would basically, what I would do, it's a motivation is the key. Depend on their age factors, depend on their family factor, younger children, older children, empty nester, the kids are gone. So if I have enough equity in my property and I want to stay, let's say I want to stay in the Lawrence area, Yonge and Lawrence, and I love it, I don't want to move. But if I got a good equity in that, I'll take it out and I invest.
Right.
I invest. But if I really, as I said, COVID taught all of us the priority of our life. What's the point of I'm sitting in a home that worth $3 million and I'm saying, Mark, next year is going to be 3.5. The next year is going to be 4 million. But if I don't use that wealth that I built, what's the point?
Right.
I would sell, go buy something small for myself. And with the cash flow that I have, I go enjoy, depend on the age, enjoy the rest of my life. That's the second option. Third option, if again I have a good equity, why not helping your children to grow their or enter to the market? What's the point of that you pass your wealth after you're gone to your children? Pass it now. Let them enjoy it.
Well, and not only that, but you get to see them enjoy it, right? Which is 3/4 of the battle, right? So you can't see it when you're dead. Like you're not going to know what's going on. So
is the safest investment Yes, don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Do some stock market, do some diversify it. Yeah. But historically, for the past 50 years, we have 7% appreciation a year. So we are always going to be on a positive side.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because the very first podcast that we did with Jazz, we talked strictly about real estate investing and how important it is to build that generational wealth for yourself. And, again, we've gone through all the, different aspects of the economy and everything that's going on. And it still comes back to buy real estate at the end of the day.
You can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong. And especially with money being as cheap as it is right now, to take the leverage out of that opportunity to either diversify a bit and buy an investment property, whether it be a condominium or like I have like I was saying on the first podcast, I have a duplex down on the beach, that's, for my kids one day to help them, be able to get their foothold into the market. And the idea is that there'll be one for each of them. So they have that opportunity to be able to get in, because they're going to need all the help they can get. Right. And, because I had clients have said to me, like, should we sell and just rent? I'm like, you have young kids. Why in the world would you cash out right now? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And it's going to cost you way more money in rent when you could take in that same payment you're going to pay in rent. If anything, pay down your mortgage. Like, just do it that way. Like, it's crazy.
Even if it costs you $200-$300 more than what you think with the rent, still keep the real estate property. Don't ever rent. When you rent, you are basically paying someone else mortgage. That's why
totally. I don't know anyone who's had success in doing that. So it's
if you have the ability to be the homeowner, you're right. But if you don't, go to a rental, save as fast as you can, and ask your parents if they have the ability to help you and enter to the market.
Sounds good. Steve, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you the last almost an hour. And I know we could go on forever, but we don't have enough time. So unfortunately, we got to stop.
Again, thank you for inviting me. Look forward to future episode with you. And good luck, my friend.
Thank you. If anyone wants to reach out to you, just email. Give you.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, my email is very simple, steve@remaxhallmark.com. And if you need even to talk to me, my phone number is 416-561-9111. I'll be more than happy to give you any advice with regard to real estate. You got a good man on this show. He knows his market. He's been around for quite some time. And since the day that he moved from Vancouver to Toronto, I have a pleasure of knowing him. You know what? You are in the right hands. And he's quite knowledgeable. He knows his neighborhood, and that's what you want.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very sweet. Steve, thank you for everything. I look forward to seeing you soon. All the best. Give my best to your lovely family and beautiful wife, and we'll speak soon.
Take care, buddy. Bye.
You too. All the best. Bye-bye.